Welcome back, everyone, to the Creative Movers podcast. Today, my special guest is Caro. She is a dancer, production assistant, videographer, and many more talents. And I'm excited to be here and talk about creativity, talk about life, and just talk about all the things in between. So, how are you feeling, Caro?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm excited.
Yes, yes.
I'm really excited.
No, awesome. I know I was, before we just pressed play to record this, I was like, I have a question I want to ask
I
you.
know. I'm like waiting for
Yes.
what that question's
And I
going to
don't
be.
want to forget this question,
Okay,
so I'm going to
go
just say it
ahead.
now. We talked about choices a little bit outside of this. And for the viewers, we're going to get into creativity, but this also might connect to creativity, might flow into that. Has there been a moment, because we talked about people make choices in their life, right? It could be creative choices, lifestyle choices, and sometimes they're not satisfied if there's many choices. And then we talked about, well, at least I brought up of maybe when there isn't a choice, it's easy. You just know. There's an instinct. Like, I know this feels right in my heart, so I make that decision, and there isn't a hesitation. Has there been any moments in your life where you knew there wasn't like a hesitation, and you knew and you acted on it?
Yes. I was in my last year of high school. This is very specific. My last year of high school, I decided that I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to college. But my parents were like kind of pushing me towards that. But I told them I was like, the only thing I did know was that I would not go to college if I wasn't dancing. Like that wasn't an option to exclude from my life. And that was the one time that I felt like, and like there's also like other moments that happened after that as well with that decision. But I think that's the most vivid in my memory just because it had, long story short, I used to be a soccer player. I used to play baseball. I used to play like flag football. Like I used to play all these other sports, but I kept quitting every single thing I was doing. And then all of a sudden I started dancing, and once I got into it, I never stopped. I did it for like 10 years as a kid. And then when my parents kind of were like, you need to go to college and get like an actual degree, which obviously isn't a thing in my
Of
opinion,
course. Of
but
course.
it wasn't like an option for me to exclude that from my life. And I think that for me it was a lifestyle choice because I wanted movement to be a part of my life, and that wasn't an exception for me.
Wow.
So that was, and even though like I guess you could say that dance isn't as present in my life currently because I'm doing a lot of more videography work, I would never say it left because it always comes back.
It's always there. Wow. Beautifully said. Wow. Well, let's go into it. How do you view creativity? What is your perspective view of that?
I find that a really convoluted question because I always think that nothing's necessarily original. I think the way that you take it is original and unique, but it always spawns from something else. For me specifically, when I create work of my own, it always is coming from an experience, specifically a memory. And that memory to me is original and unique, because it happened to me. And the way that I produce it after that is creative because it's not a copy of the event, because you can never copy the memory. Exactly.
So you're saying you take inspiration or you create based off of past memories. And you're saying that you cannot replicate that memory because it's just impossible to.
Yeah, because it's like a phantom. It's almost like it's laying dormant in your mind for however long until you act upon to recreate that.
Okay.
And recreate means it's not, I don't know how to say it. You're creating
You're losing
it.
the essence
Yes,
of it because
yeah.
it's being changed into a form.
Yeah, it's like when they say
Yes.
the more you look back on a memory, the more it fades.
It
Like,
alters.
Yes.
It's like crumbling.
The
It's-
less, yes, and the less details you have to recollect.
Right.
So what you're creating is therefore the byproduct of recreating the memory is a creativity, but not inherently, I guess.
Say that last part again.
Oh God, let's see if I
Let's
remember.
just try it. Let's try it
Okay,
because
okay.
this is. I like where this is. Where we're going with this.
Recreating that memory. one more time. Okay, recreating that memory is a byproduct of the original. However,
It's separate in a
it's
sense.
separate in a sense because you're creating it from the details that you remember and adding in things that you don't know that you added in. So therefore it's creative because you have all these like sources of inspiration. Is my way of saying it.
I'm a very like what's the word, visual learner of like examples as well. Can you provide an example in your life where you have done this, of looking at a memory and now taking that memory and creating something off of that? And it could be in any form, because I know dance, as you have. I also know, and maybe in film, videography. Is there a specific example you could give?
A specific example of like
Of your
the memory
yes,
and
like
then
you took
taking
this.
it?
Yes.
Okay. So in the summer, I was doing an internship with a dance festival, and I was the videographer. I was on the other side, and I had so many good memories. Like meeting new people and like meeting new people from like Maine. I had never been there before. It was just very different, like lives crossing,
Right.
and there's nothing tangible about that. The only thing tangible is the people, and the memories aren't tangible.
Okay.
So imagine like what I like. The example is like when I went there and met all these people, I gathered so many different memories of us like having lunch together, creating together,
Okay.
and then by the end, I made like a compilation video just for myself.
Okay.
I made a compilation video of all the scenes that I remember happening. But when you watch it as like a third party and not knowing who I am, you're like, she looks like she's having a fun time. But the memories that are being relived are in that video are for me, not for me, but I'm the only one who knows them. And the person that I shared that with, the clip, like let's say they're in the clip, I shared that with just them.
Right.
So, but I created like a whole different like life form of that memories, of all of those memories.
They're not the same.
And they're not the same. And I look back on them and I remember how I felt, but I'm also remembering how I feel now watching it back. So every time I rewatch it, it's like, oh, I remember that. And I remember it was a really great time. And then you remember different details about that event. But if that's a good example.
Right. It sounds like you're like it's a remix.
Yeah,
it's not the original. It's remixed.
Exactly. Yes.
And you could keep going,
Yeah, you
remixing it
could.
more over time. Wow.
And I think that if I were to have like remixed it more over time, I think I would have remembered different parts of that trip. I would have been like, oh, I remember when we were like dancing outside in the park. And I would add that in, and then it becomes a whole different thing.
Wow. So looking at memories as a way of creating past experiences, past knowledge. Okay.
I think that's like the only way. I've probably done it in other ways than I am remembering, but that is like one of every dance piece that I've ever worked on or made or been a part of. That's like where I take it from.
Inspiration
is from my memories.
From your memories, moments. Would you say specifically, family, friends, these experiences?
Yes.
So you're taking life moments and you're implementing it into your work.
Yeah. It's like the only way you understand the world is interacting with people. And the way that I communicate with the world at that point is through my interactions, so I'm processing them. And then it's almost like eating it and then like pouring it out, or like filling your cup and then pouring it out.
Filling your cup, gathering the memories, and then creating a product and sharing it with the world.
And it's an offering.
And if it's a dance piece, if it's something of you filmed, you're sharing a part of it's a story about yourself. Wow. I was having this thought when I was driving here about like the deepest parts of art, of like what people are doing. And it's like, I mean, I'm sure there's so many ways to say, but it sounds like, or it looks like, what a lot of people in art are doing is taking their experiences in life and then translating it into another form. If it's music, if it's dance, it's like things that happen to them.
Yes.
And they're like, I'm going to show you or tell you it, but it's just remixed and in a way.
Yeah.
Would you say that sounds
Yes, that's really
like a
accurate to how I
depth
feel.
version of express like art and
Yes.
expression and
I think I've seen one work that has done it in the past, like a dance theater work. Not important which one, but the way it was about alcoholism and grief and all that other stuff
Okay.
that I cannot relate to.
Okay.
Like inherently all those things put together. And it didn't matter what they were moving like. It didn't matter whether it was contemporary hip hop, whatever it was. It was the way that they did it. It was like what their faces looked like how their body hesitated to move across the stage. And that, at some point, you realize that it's basic human connection is really what feeds everyone. So for me, that's like where I gain inspiration from and create from, because it feels the most real to me, most raw.
This performance would be an example of
Yeah.
that realness because of the level of detail that they're
Yes.
putting into it to really give you that idea of like what this is. Wow.
Even though you can't relate to it with your own
can't-
experiences.
But I see it and I'm like, this feels,
Yeah.
I feel something.
Like if you feel like it might be happening
It's
to you, but it's
real.
not. Yeah.
This is very fascinating.
Yeah.
I feel like what we're talking about is going beyond just creating a piece or like, okay, I have this idea. I have a dance style and I want to be like water. I make a video on water.
Yeah.
This is like my soul, my depth. I'm showing you what I'm showing you life. This is weird, which makes me think of movies because think of how many people love movies and what are movies? They look like a real, I'm like immersed in this reality, what they're showing me, if it's about a family, relationships, hate, it's like showing you life. Wow.
Yeah. I guess for me, creating something that feels like myself or creating something that feels honest comes from only things that I know myself. Maybe I don't know or maybe I don't understand, but I feel like it has to physically or emotionally happen to me first to then, I don't want to say have a word about it. I don't want to say have a word about it because I don't think that that's true.
That you need to experience.
Yeah, I don't think that that's true, but I think it gives a different depth.
Would you say you can only go as far as you know? Like, can you create let's say alcoholism. For you, you may not have that in your life, in your family. Can you, I mean, maybe you wouldn't though. Maybe people are creating on what is their personal experience.
Yeah, because I also wouldn't feel right about making a piece like that.
Right, why would you?
Exactly. And then it's like maybe you yourself have an experience or a judgment about that, and that's what the piece is about or becomes about. And I'm not saying that that's what it is. I'm just saying maybe there's like another layer of like thought that you have about it, even though that you're not like personally related to the experience.
Right.
But yeah, that's a hard question because
can you create something with details and real life if you haven't experienced, you're saying?
Yeah. I guess that's where a big question mark lies for me. Because then you're saying that if a director is making a film.
Yes. About, let's say the Titanic.
Okay, yeah.
Let's say they do it, now 2024, they have a remake of the Titanic.
And it's funny because the director, like, of that movie, I don't know, anyway. But let's say, okay, director making the Titanic movie, but has no ties. But
has no
ties, which I don't think that did. I don't remember.
Right. Okay.
I don't remember.
I think they will. I think again. Why are they making this movie? What is the heart part? Why is their heart into making this film? That's the question, I think.
Yeah, and then you like realize that there's so many other people working on it, and maybe it's not for the same reasons. Maybe they just need to get a check. But because at the end, then it makes you question like. The director's the one who's pouring the life into this. So that question's really hard. Because if, like, for example, that assistant director of that movie had to contribute in some sort of way. So you relate. So you relate to that human expression and human grief that we all go through.
Right.
So, and that's a way to connect.
How does an actor who hasn't experienced a death in his family play a role of experiencing death in his family? How do actors tap into an experience? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I've taken one acting class.
Uh-huh.
But I remember like trying to think about something that made me sad.
To be able to
Yeah.
tap into
To be
that.
able to tap in or imagine that I didn't have someone to tap into that. But you almost have to recreate that feeling even though you haven't felt it, which is different.
Right. But even actors, they seem to have specific roles they like to play. So even them, though they may be able to change their character, maybe there's certain characters again that something deep within they align with more, which is why you see them in specific roles. It's
I never
like
thought about it like
there's still it's like it sounds like we keep going back into like, yeah, you can learn as much as you can, but what is your heart? What is
Yeah.
going on in your life? And that thing is what's going to really flourish your story, who you are. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, what are you gonna take from your life? No, but really, honestly, it sounds like what do you if you agree, disagree that every art form, it sounds like tapping into your personal experiences creates something. People really connect with that the most when it's something personal from you. It's really deep to you.
I think that's because it's like if we're here sharing or just like let's say we first met each other and we're just having small talk. When you go home, are you going to like think about that conversation?
If it didn't impact, if I was not 100% focused and involved into it, then I probably won't.
It's because it's surface layer.
It was probably very general, basic.
Yeah, in general.
Yeah.
So like when you think about like talking about like different things with different people, like for example, like sorrow or grief,
Yes.
when you connect and relate to another person like that, you bond with them. And for me that you're not creating things to bond with other people, but it just happens that way because you're offering that outward. Those experiences.
Makes me think of vulnerability.
Yes.
It's like when someone's very vulnerable with someone, very open, it's like, whoa, I see you, I hear you. This pain that we share. What do you think are certain qualities every human can relate to or connect to? And I guess, I mean, I think of music. It sounds like everyone loves music, loves movies, enjoys these things. Why? What is the common thing that humans can all connect to? What is this? I mean, I'll just say right in my mind, love. That's how many songs, films, movies, poetry, dances of that. It's like that's a thing that human. But what are your thoughts on that? Because it's like,
lot.
As an artist, these are the things that I think sadly, yeah, you can try to study and figure out what are humans connected to and craft something. But we're not trying to craft, but like naturally, what do you think are those things?
I think naturally we always drift towards what makes us happiest. Unfortunately, I feel that right now and I'm not saying I'm excluded, but we chase towards happiness for short-term purposes, like for that chase of dopamine. And I think that's to a certain extent what movies can do. Like makes you realize that like, oh, I'm going to go to the movie and this movie made me so happy. And that's the point. But I think we always, as humans, want to be happy.
We want to be
and we
happy.
want to feel loved. I mean, that's like one of our, if you like the hierarchy of needs, that's like a basic need. Like you need to do that to feel
connection.
You need that as a human being to flourish, to even get to the top of the pyramid, which I forgot what the
And
top
I think
is.
it's self-actualization,
Yes.
where pretty much you are connected to your source, your center, but you need like the survival and everything. The Maslow's hierarchy, I think.
Yes.
Right. So connection. So connection is the thing that all humans seem to be able to relate to. It's that wanting connection, wanting. You said love.
Wanting
to
love,
feel,
connection.
Yeah, we see. I mean, we see it so much of a theme in every art form. Like, I wonder if that's maybe the most talked about thing in art of connection to others or wanting to feel loved.
And I feel like even if it's not about that in the big picture, it's always right here.
It's still connected to the picture of this. I want. Here I am.
Yeah, like if you watch dystopian movies, it's never just about the society. It's always like these two lovers, and it still exists within the movie. And it's almost like that is the driving source of hope for them to get out of that society. And then when you think about it, you're like, maybe it is about love, but maybe it's not, because it's about people that, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I always think that love has something to do with it.
Love has something to do with the connection.
Just
Or
yeah, like love has everything to do with how you what's the word? I think love has everything to do with wanting to do something.
do you find there to be a connection between creativity and love?
I think if you're creating it, you must love it somehow, right?
If you're creating it, you must love it.
Or have an attraction towards it.
If you're putting, this is of course not being pressured or because I need money.
Yes, that's
Because if I
excluding
need money,
all those
I'm going to do
factors.
this gig. I'm going to go do that. But I
See,
don't
yeah.
love it.
And that's different. Because you can create all day, but is it something that you feel is honest to yourself? I mean, that's the way that I create. Like if it doesn't feel honest with me, then it's not worth creating.
Have you felt moments where, have you ever created something that didn't feel honest?
Yeah,
You have. What were the reasons for doing so?
I think there was a piece I had worked on. It was about Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Oh,
actually.
interesting.
It was set up like on this building. It had like open stairs. But I was more attracted to the visual than actually working on what the movement meant. And I don't think that it was a waste of time creating it. I think I learned a lot about myself. But I wanted a quick creating thing, and when I looked back at the footage, I was like, my friend was in it. She was performing. She did great, but it just didn't. It felt like it was missing something. Like the movement quality, I felt like it was missing something, and it was because I didn't work on how I felt about it. I was just like, oh, here's the concept, and these are the names, and dance however you want, which is totally fine, and that can be a decision. I just didn't feel like it was me. It wasn't. It didn't feel honest because I didn't take time. And I don't think that everything needs time. But for me, I felt like that project needed that.
It needed more time for you to soak into what is it that you
wanted to make, or felt like making, or how I related to that.
You saw
structure.
the design and you're like, oh, I like it.
It looks like this.
It looks really nice. But it was like, and then what? And what about it?
And there wasn't any space that I made to discover what that was.
Which brings me to my next question I want to ask you. How does one create a space? How does one get into that that process of creating something honest with not, how does one get into that zone?
It's funny you asked me that, because I had my friend, I was just really sad. I was just working at a restaurant maybe a year ago, and I was just doing the same thing every day. Go to work, or wake up, go to work, come back home, and just lounge. And it just felt like every day. And I remember telling him that I just I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. I don't know. And he was like, but you don't go out and do anything. And I was like, you're right. I don't even do anything. Of course I go out, but I don't go to museums or just go sit outside, which in those spaces that you actually can do that, it's almost like the whole world is at your fingertips. There's so many things that you could learn from just going outside and just allowing yourself the space to be influenced.
Yes.
There's so much stuff that you can be fed when you're not on the phone or when you're outside. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I still, it's a practice, and I feel that more than anything. But the day after he said that, I went to the museum, took a bunch of photographs, and it's so funny because the theme of those photos, it kind of looked like enlightenment. Like it
Ooh.
looked very spacious. It looked like everything was angled upward, almost like looking up.
Holy, divine. It's like out there,
Yeah, and it to me it felt like this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
which was,
Like this is what I'm supposed to be doing, like going outside and just letting things speak to you.
it's like life's kind of guiding you through it. It's just like,
Yeah.
let me be open to it and see what am I naturally. Wow.
I think to get to that space that you're talking about, to be able to create, you have to not always say no to do things. I think trying to be open to doing more things. I mean, I love staying at home. I'm very extroverted, but I can get very like shy. But I'm trying. I have to actually try and go out and do stuff, and that has been honestly one of like the hardest things I think I have to do now, because I want to be able to have experiences to be able to draw off of, to then create something and share something. So I think just getting out more,
Going
as
out.
simple as it sounds.
Getting out, going out. Let life seems to open up in its roads and its direction as if you're open to it. So, wow. My this is wonderful, I think, because again, this relates to any art form. This isn't specific to dance or film, or so it can be taken and applied, and you can reflect of where one is in their creative process. Are they tapping into something deeper, meaningful, or is it very surface level? A question I'd like to ask you, my last question would be, if someone out there was like, man, like, I want to create something meaningful and like something beautiful. I just don't know where to start. Where do I start? Where do I begin with this? And they can be, again, any art form. They want to create something beautiful. They just don't know where to start.
Do they have like an idea or nothing? They don't know where to start.
Let's say they briefly have an
Okay,
idea.
briefly
They
have an
have, they want to
idea.
do something with relating to family.
Okay.
Maybe something there.
I think research. Just see what everybody else felt too. Ask your friends. You're like, it's not that distant. Everybody's felt like similar things. I think that there's this book. It's a really important book, but it talks about how it's something about artists stealing, like artists stealing.
Okay. And I
But
feel like an artist. Or-
It is steal like an
Okay,
artist.
okay.
It is steal like an artist. But beyond that book, I think that it's not about stealing. I think everybody's felt the same types of things. And I
Right,
just
right.
think that you aren't alone. And when you talk to people and share those experiences, you're like, oh, I felt like that too. And you didn't think of that yourself, but now that someone else brought it up, you're like, yeah, I did think like that. And then you have more things to think about and to draw from. And having those conversations with people gives more influence to what that project could become.
It's like documenting life. It's like
Yes.
interviewing life
Yeah.
and gathering more information from life and people. And then it's like, which sounds exactly probably a big thing of directors do or film to understand to make a movie about Germany or whatever history. They gathered people that as close lived their biographies, documentaries. Wow.
Yeah.
Diving deep into it. Well, Caro, I want to thank you so much for sharing your time and also just your mind and just how you look at the world and how you create art. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
through.
you.